Welcome back to the Midday Show. As you can see, we're still on our great break for some fresh air from the studio. Those lights could just get so harsh. This background really sets the mood.
So after we've analyzed a few poems today, we decided we would keep rolling with it. I'm just really loving this poetry episode.
Me too.
I'm so happy you could join us today, Kira. So our final poem that we're going to be talking about today is another Gwendolyn Brooks piece, and it's called The Bean Eaters. And
Bean Eaters. That's an interesting title.
Yeah, well, the title indicates simplicity, and that's really what this poem is all about. And after, looking further into it, I also realized that it shows the severity of poverty because beans are cheap, and that's, what they're eating. Obviously, we just get that information from the title. It also suggests a relationship because the bean eaters is plural. And this is our first kind of way into the poem, and the author uses it as a really nice segue because it sets the reader up for the two major themes, which are simplicity and poverty, that we see throughout the rest of the poem.
So would you say there's like a specific audience that the author is trying to target?
Well, Gwendolyn Brooks is from the south side of Chicago, and generally, that's known as a pretty impoverished area, and I think she's really, gearing towards that audience, and she's talking about maybe some experiences that she's seen or been around, and I think she does it really nicely and ties those experiences really nicely into the poem.
Okay, so what would you say are some good literary devices that she uses and like her message that she's basically trying to get to the reader?
Well, she has some really great metaphors that she uses, and the first one is in the first line of the poem, which is, "They eat beans mostly, this old yellow pair." And the part at the end there, "this old yellow pair," is a metaphor for the age of the couple. It shows how old they are, and the old yellow pair is a metaphor for them. They're yellowing with age, and then they eat beans mostly. That just shows the reality of their life at this point. And I think those are two things that show this simplicity as well. And another way that simplicity is shown is the repetitive use of the word plain. Her language itself is simple, and I think that's another way the poem can also appeal to a lot more audiences because her language is straightforward, easy to understand. And then she uses the word plain to describe their dinner, their meal, their house, their old chipped plates. Their dinner is a casual affair, and then she describes everything after that with the word plain. And I think that's just a really good indicator for us in the first stanza of the couple's life.
Gotcha. So what would you say, what is all of this supposed to mean? What is the author trying to portray the reader to understand? What is her comment on the human condition?
Well, we see her comment on the human condition through the second and third stanzas, and that is that, even though they don't have a lot, they're living in poverty, they're renting a back room of a house, it's full of tobacco crumbs and receipts, all these things are built up, but they're still remembering their life as it was, and they do this through the little trinkets and twinklings and twinges, as Brooks describes it, that are just make their house full. And we see that they have lived their day, and now they're wearing down. They're in this routine of just putting on their clothes and putting things away. And I just think it shows that they're to a point now where all they can do is remember and look back, because they have lived their day. And that line really stands out in the poem.
So that was a lot of really good information. What contrasts and tensions would you say the author is using to create and like portray her attitude towards the subject?
Right. I think a really good point of contrast, which I just touched on a little bit, is how Brooks uses the word full to describe their room, which contrasts with the fact that they're living in poverty and eat beans mostly. And after Brooks says full, it's followed by a list of all the things that are cluttering their room. And we see this in the second stanza where Brooks emphasizes the couple's age and wariness by their actions of putting on clothes and putting things away. However, the whole rest of the poem is about how they're poor and simple people, but the fact that they like have a lot of clothes to put on and things to put away just kind of, contrasts that a little bit. But, again, for the most part, the poem is pretty simple, and there's not too many other points of contrast or tension, as she's just, trying to get that point of simplicity and poverty again across to the readers.
Wow, thank you. That was a lot of very insightful information. Well, thank you so much for letting me be on your show today.
Thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to have you, and I feel like I just, gained so much from this.
Yeah.
I love this poetry episode, and I hope you all did too.
Yeah, I learned so much. Thank you for having me. I gotta go catch my flight now. Have a nice night.
You too. Just gonna enjoy the sunset.
Ciao.
See you next time on the Midday Show.